He talks a lot about, as I said, investing, economics, personal finance, and all the above on his Instagram that he created. And he scaled this business to over 815,000 people in this community.
How you can kind of separate yourself maybe from the pack by showing people that are following you, or just a tight-knit community of like the importance of building that thing for yourself.
A startup company trying to disrupt real estate, and I've always been kind of fascinated with like technology and just the companies that could potentially be the ones that disrupt these ancient industries.
I'm curious about your background, that what drove you towards something like the market hustle. Like, was there something in your childhood? What drives you about investing, personal finance? Is it innate? Is it somebody you met, somebody that you learned from?
I worked with like 15 to 18-year-old girls, and I was the only guy. So they're like, hey dude, you're doing all the masculine stuff. We can't do it, which is kind of odd, but I was cleaning the pool, cutting the grass, painting the walls.
Like when I tell people money's important, I'm not saying like make your whole life revolve around it and go stack up as much money and that's all you should be doing. The whole point of getting your money situation in order is so you never have to worry about money at all.
Welcome to the Weekly Juice Podcast, where we discuss all things real estate, personal finance, investing, entrepreneurship, and the many ways to achieve financial independence. We interview accomplished investors and entrepreneurs with the goal that their stories inspire you to take control of your financial future. Here to get your creative juices flowing, while also documenting their own personal investing journeys, are your hosts, Corey Jacobson and Ryan Bevilacqua.
Welcome back to the Weekly Juice. As always, it's your boys Ryan and Corey here with another episode. This week we interviewed Josh Smith. He is the man behind the Market Hustle. So if you're on Instagram and you're in the personal finance and investing community, you have definitely seen this page. We've posted or reposted a lot of his tweets, his thoughts, and ideas. He's awesome on there. So he's a content creator. He has a background, a little bit of background in real estate, and he studied business in school. So he talks a lot about, as I said, investing, economics, personal finance, and all the above on his Instagram that he created. And he scaled this business to over 815,000 people in this community. And he's done a phenomenal job. It's funny content, insightful content. And today he gave us a peek behind the curtain on how he runs his show and why he does what he does.
He's been doing it for 5 years. He says he's been going really hard for 3 years, but he does this full time. And for the last 2 years, he's been full time on this. So it's somebody who, has a pretty cool story to tell, but also is just like firing content at you left and right. And the fact that he's able to make a full living off of this, and now he's able to build out this business behind it and give people products to help build out their, what do they need to do personally in their financial journey? How do they invest? How do they get ahead? All these tips are laid out to you with free game. And then he has some other products, a newsletter, a course, I believe, to help kind of build this platform or build this blueprint. And so we got to know the guy behind the curtain there. And he's a cool dude. Open Doors, where he worked for a few years. So that was what you're saying about his real estate investing background or real estate background. But yeah.
So if you want to learn more or follow along while we go through this episode, you can go on Instagram at The Market Hustle is his main page, and you'll get an idea of what we're talking about. But Josh has an amazing story and talks about how he created this platform, and it's now his full-time gig, right? It affords him to live the life he wants, but talk and help people in the personal finance community better their financial pictures.
Some of this episode actually is about content creation too. We do dive in a little bit of that and kind of the importance behind of building your own brand. Like what's the purpose of that? How you can kind of separate yourself maybe from the pack by showing people that are following you, or just a tight-knit community of like the importance of building that thing for yourself.
Couldn't agree more. So I think without further ado, we bring in Josh and let him tell a story. Josh, officially welcome to the Weekly Juice Podcast. Corey and I are so excited to have you on the show, man. As you know, we've been following you for a long time. You've built up an incredible platform on social media, on Instagram specifically, about 815,000 followers, big community you built. We've reshared your tweets a bunch of times.
Basically repost all your stuff.
Yeah, we've learned a lot from you, man. So it's a pleasure to finally put a face to a name and have you join the show. So thanks for coming on.
Hey, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So if you could, give us a little walk down memory lane here for you. So who you are, where you're from, and then take us through a little bit about you. I think a lot of people see your Instagram and we see a lot of tweets, we see a lot of graphics, but who is Josh, and how did you develop and create this awesome brand, The Market Hustle?
Let's jump into it. So first off, yeah, I'm the guy behind The Market Hustle. Josh, that's my name. I live in Seattle, Washington. I actually recently moved here last year, so I've only been here for a year. Before that, I lived in Phoenix, Arizona for a big chunk of my life. Like I want to say around 15, 16 years. Just need a little change of scenery. I'm not a big fan of the heat, so Arizona wasn't ideal for me. So I went to like the opposite place when it comes to weather-wise, and ended up here in Washington. But other than that, my background, I actually worked in real estate for a good chunk, I want to say roughly 4 to 5 years before I actually went full-time in the Market Hustle. So backing up just a little bit, after I graduated college, I jumped into being a real estate agent. So I was just a regular real estate agent with a little boutique brokerage in Scottsdale, Arizona. So I worked there for a couple of years under a great mentor. And he kind of taught me the ropes of real estate. After that, I actually had an opportunity with Open Door to help them build out their buyer agent team. So if you're familiar with Open Door, they were kind of like the startup company trying to disrupt real estate. And I've always been kind of fascinated with like technology and just the companies that could potentially be the ones that disrupt these ancient industries. So I thought it was a great opportunity to kind of try that out. I worked there for roughly 2 to 3 years. And then after they went public, I was in the process of also building the Market Hustle while I was working there partially. And the Market Hustle really started to take off, which that was back in 2021 during the stock market frenzy. So it really gave me a boost with the Market Hustle, growing that and whatnot. And I ended up going full time into that, left Open Door. And since January 2021-ish, I've been completely full time building out the Market Hustle and trying to create it into something or just kind of see where I could potentially take it. I mean, it started as a hobby. I mean, I'm sure with your pages, you guys can kind of relate to this. It started as kind of like a hobby, just kind of doing it on the side. One thing led to another. Like as things start to grow and you gain momentum, the possibilities start or opportunities really start to open up and you just start to see where you could potentially take it. And that's kind of where I'm at now, just trial and error, like seeing what potential things I can add to the page and what routes I can take it and who I can partner with. So that's kind of where I'm at now, but it's been a wild journey and I feel like I'm just getting started. So I'm constantly trying to try new things and jump onto podcasts and whatnot, just to, meet people in the industry and see what I can learn.
Yeah, I love it, man. I think your page is awesome. For people that don't know, at the Market Hustle, I mean, a lot of it is personal finance, investing, and you've grown such a big following. I'm curious about your background, that what drove you towards something like the Market Hustle? Like, was there something in your childhood? What drives you, about investing, personal finance? Is it innate? Is it somebody you met, somebody that you learned from? Just expand on that.
Yeah, good question. So I'll say, I mean, as a kid, like I saw the importance of money, like just growing up in my family. My family specifically got hit hard with the 2008 recession, and it really kind of limited our resources, like our family resources, and made things tough for us. And it was really eye-opening. Like I want to say, I forget the exact age I was at, but I was a younger kid, and just like watching my parents struggle with money was a super eye-opening experience for me as a kid. And I would say that is probably fundamentally where a lot of my interest in money came from, was just seeing how my parents were struggling with money, and then just the world in general, because like everything was kind of falling apart back in 2008. So just watching all of that kind of unfold, it was mind-blowing to me as a kid. And I was fascinated by it. I wanted to learn more about it. And I would say that a lot of what I do now just stems probably from that moment, if I kind of go back in my memories. But ultimately, like I think real estate, I jumped into the marketing world for real estate because I had to, build my brand. And so I got a lot of familiar with social media in general. And then I've always had just a general interest in personal finance concepts and also helping people where I can, because when you're helping first-time homebuyers as an agent, a lot of it is just kind of teaching people simple personal finance concepts. So I would say, funny enough, like although I'm kind of like scattered all over the place, it's all kind of built on top of each other and kind of positioned me into the spot of where I'm at today, building out the Market Hustle. So yeah, going from like real estate and then talking to the stock market, like to me, a lot of it is correlated because it all involves investing and just general personal finance concepts. And weirdly enough, I like to talk about this stuff. I know a lot of people don't, but I enjoy discussing it and helping people learn just even the fundamentals and basics.
You're in good company, dude. We like to talk about it too. So
Yeah, it's funny that you just the way that you frame that, because like we come from a family, both our fathers are entrepreneurs, and I always like to hear where it came from, like the spark about money. I would say that both of our fathers are really, really good at their craft, but like I didn't learn about money growing up from them. Like, did you? Like, I didn't. I knew because he was a salesman and he was growing his business, but like not money concepts really. Like,
It's weird. No one really asked me that before. I don't think so. For me, it was always, hey, as soon as you get turned 14, you're going to go get a job, and you just go figure out what you like. It was drive around whoever's hiring, and you start there.
thing. When
And
I
then
was
you
16.
16, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's funny. I did originally. I worked at an inn, right? I was like the handyman. I worked with like 15 to 18-year-old girls, and I was the only guy. So they're like, "Hey, dude, you're doing all the masculine stuff because we can't do it," which is kind of odd. But I was cleaning the pool, cutting the grass, painting the walls, and I was like, okay. And my dad was he's in construction and excavation and all that. So like hands-on people in my family, right? And all my cousins are entrepreneurs and stuff, but it's more so like a blue collar side. So I was used to that stuff. Then I went to landscaping, eventually did a little stint in retail at PacSun. So but I say this I was all over the place, right? And it wasn't that, hey, money was taught to you in this way. It was like, hey, dad went to work, he provided for the family, and then now it's your turn, go out there, and you have to be able to pay to go to the movies or pay to go out with your friends or whatever it is, your car note. And that was through high school. But you go through this as your own person, and you're like, holy crap, the world revolves around money. And then it starts making you question things. And then the research comes, and you realize, like, once you get to like fast forward to college, right? Or getting through college, like, holy crap, this is very expensive to go to college. Even after, like, what am I going to do? I have to make money to sustain my whole life. How the hell did my dad help us out along the way? It blew my mind. And you were like, you're going out, hanging out with friends, like going to class, but how is this going to actually correlate to the real world? And that's when it all hits you. And I feel like it's hard to be taught that at a young age from someone, or I don't even know if I would listen. It's more so going through it, the experiences yourself, to really be like, oh damn, like I have to take this shit serious because it's soon going to hit me where it's all on me.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that. We'll get back to Josh's story in a second, but it's so interesting. I always like to frame it with people as like, you don't have to love money or anything like that. You just have to understand how it works. And that's what I think. I actually turn to your page a lot, Josh, because it's like you're talking about the markets, you're talking about personal finance, you're talking about investing. It's like you're really telling people how it works, and not like this scarcity mindset or this greed, like you need more of it, but like, how does this thing work so that you can live the life and do the things that you actually want to do and not really worry about money so much, because so many people are trying to figure out where they can get their next couple nickels to pay for whatever, their lifestyle, their food. And once you can remove yourself from that, you can actually enjoy life a little bit. So I want to get back to your story. You started Market Hustle, you started to grow, you're teaching people. So what are some of the investing strategies that you have, that you've developed, knowing what you know, and what do you kind of tell people that are, they're working this job, they want to put some money aside, maybe they have to avoid lifestyle creep, but then once they start to get this momentum going, like, what's the play? What would you suggest?
So, the one thing I've realized is a lot of people just, how do I say this? A lot of people struggle with just the concept of money in general. And that's probably why I hit on it a lot on my page, because if you have a bad relationship with money, or just had this weird belief about money, like money's evil, money is the source of all of our problems, or whatever it is, like you're not going to be able, it doesn't matter what I tell you about investing, like none of it's going to click, right? So like, to me, like the philosophy I take, especially with the Market Hustle, is trying to just show people like why money is important, right? Because for the longest time, there's been a big stigma around just talking about money in general in society. And I feel like that's kind of been starting to open up a little bit, where people are more open to discussing it a little bit more than they probably used to. And maybe that's because it's becoming more transparent, or just people are starting to realize like how important it actually is. Like, it's one thing, like when I tell people like, money's important, I'm not saying like make your whole life revolve around it and go stack up as much money and that's all you should be doing. The whole point of getting your money situation in order is so you never have to worry about money at all ever again, right? So like that's the whole like fundamental thesis around getting your money game situated, is so that you don't have to be limited by money. Because the truth in our society, like the society we live in, like you need money in order to do the things you want to do. So the more money you get in your life, the more options you're going to have to do the things you actually want to do. So that's like the step one that I try to explain to people, because if you don't understand that, like if you don't understand that money is just a tool, it doesn't matter what I say about investing or the stock market, like all of it's just going to go over your head and you're not going to grasp it. So and that's partially why I spend a lot of my time with the market hustle, like really hitting on that. And I try to say it like so many different ways. Like a lot of people, like one of the common pushbacks I get is that my page is repetitive. And I'm like, well, it's repetitive because this is important concepts to actually learn. And a lot of people, sometimes it takes a couple of times for them to hear it to actually start to grasp it, you know? At least it did for me. Like, I mean, I dove into reading a bunch of personal finance books, and although all the personal finance books that you might read like have similar concepts, like they teach very similar concepts, like they say it in different ways that you can kind of pick it up and add it into your own life, right? So
Yeah.
That's kind of my response to people who say my page is repetitive. And then again, I mean, you know, a lot of like what you need to do to invest in the stock market, it's very simple. You just Google it and you can learn pretty quickly. And the reason why a lot of people don't do that is because they don't understand the deeper meaning behind money, I would say, or they let their own beliefs that maybe they were developed when they were a kid or just through society in general blind them from, you know, just seeing how important personal finance or just simple money management concepts are. You know, I would say that people who there's a fine balance that you kind of have to walk, where you don't want to end up on one end of the spectrum where you just don't give a fuck about money and you're just all about, you know, using credit cards and debt and whatever, you know, YOLO. But then there's also the other end of the spectrum where you're just you're like overly money management, like overly watching your spending, and maybe you have $1 million in the bank, but you're still like penny pinching. Like, you know, you want to find something somewhere in the middle. And like my big philosophy is that you can do both. You can build wealth and you can also enjoy life at the same time. It's tricky because where that balance lies is going to be different for every single person, because we're all at different stages of our investing careers or just life in general. And what we all enjoy in life is going to be different depending on the person. So finding that balance depends on the person. But I definitely, like, I think it's completely possible. And that's kind of my response to the people who say, it's like, I get it all the time on my post where I'll post something, some sort of, you know, one of my tweets or whatever, and people will push back, like, there's more to life than money. And like, of course there is. And that's the entire point of why I'm saying that you need to get your money situation in order, is so you can enjoy those things that are more important in life than just facilitating.
Yeah, I mean, I can give you like a framework that I use, and I think Rye's probably in a similar position. I'm curious how you do it. Like, so all the money that I make at my W-2 job, I contribute to my 401k, and we have a match. Okay, and then, you know, a lot of that goes to my lifestyle. Any money that I would make on the side, it's typically going to the investing that I do. But then I also have like a specific amount that I set aside. I think right now it's like $500 a month. I'm just putting it into in a brokerage account. It's a 401k brokerage. I know Rye has a Roth IRA, but it's interesting because any money other than what's contributing to my 401k, what's contributing to the brokerage, and then I'm not living off of, is all going into real estate investing for now. So it's like, I'm curious if you have like it doesn't have to be like a number. I'm curious if you have a formula, like I'm taking 5% or I'm taking 10% of, you know, the money that you bring in, and a rule of thumb for people, that what you feel like, it's different for everyone, but what is comfortable for you to tell people to put away or invest.
So yeah, good question. The one thing that I try to live by is the 20% rule, where, you know, you're investing 20% of every single dollar that you're earning. So that's one thing that I do. I mean, obviously, the more of your income you're investing, the better. But for me specifically, I'll just give you a rundown, kind of like how I roughly allocate my money. And I'll say right now I'm at about a 50% savings rate with the income I have coming in. And I would say roughly 20% of that is going into the stock market. And then the other 20% of that's going into my own business. So like I'm investing in my side hustle, you know, the market hustle. And then 10% of that is going specifically to usually my Roth IRA or my emergency fund, depending on if I have maxed out my Roth IRA or not. But so I guess 30% of it would be roughly going into the stock market in general. But 50% is my saving rate. And what I'll say is that, you know, if you can hit at least 20%, you're going to be ahead of almost everybody, you know, the average person in general. And it doesn't even necessarily have to all go to the stock market right away. And like, so when you're investing 20%, like what I mean by investing is it could also be like learning skills to increase your income in the short term, right? Like that's a form of investing, or maybe starting a side hustle, or maybe it is real estate, or maybe it's, yeah, just education in general. So like, if you get into the habit of always investing 20% of your income, which is it's not easy. I mean, it's easier said than done, but if you can get to that point, you're going to be much well off compared to like just the average person in general. So like that would be kind of like my rule of thumb, is do what you can to just 20% of whatever you make, invest it in either yourself or in assets. And then the 80%, the rest of the 80%, spend it on whatever the hell else you want to spend it on.
I think that's cool. So I want to dive into the market hustle in general. Like at the core of you, dude, you're a content creator and you've done a great job marketing and creating a brand. And I think that's, a lot of people want to do that and they find it hard to do. They're like, hey, listen, I want to create a side hustle. I have these ideas, but it's hard for me to put them on paper, and not only put on paper, but stay consistent over time. What I've learned about you over the last couple of years is like, dude, you've not only, I would say, pretty much perfected your craft, but you're consistent with it. So you built out systems on the back end. I want to talk about those. Like, I know for Corey and I, right, we have our real estate, we have our W-2 jobs, then we also have a podcast. Then we also, a rendition of the podcast is also our Instagram page. And that, it takes time to build out, right? You have to, took us a year to just keep consistently posting every single day. And then you kind of like, I don't know what you want to call it, but like sharpen the edges on the back end and create the system that runs efficiently. So if you could give us a little back on like, what systems are you using to kind of run the show behind the scenes? Because you have the Instagram pages, but not only that, things have to be created. They have to, like, where are you getting your ideas? Do you have a specific, like, are you using Asana? Are you using an automated scheduler? What things do you use that people that may want to create a page or I want to put their ideas out there can start doing?
Good question. So I did try using some software to like automatically post in the past. And what I noticed when I tried doing that is it seemed like Instagram started to penalize me with reach in my audience. So like I stopped doing that. So like as of right now, I'm still manually posting every single one of my posts. And I've periodically tested to see if like they change that, but it seems like, and this could just be like just me overthinking it, but it seems like Instagram does penalize you for trying to like plan your post ahead of time. And my guess is probably because they don't want businesses like mass producing content, because they want to keep their, system more organic and try to reward people who are posting more organically. That's kind of my hypothesis around it. I have no clue, but so I'm still manually posting. But what I will say when it comes to content creation in general, yeah, that alone is basically a full-time job. And I try to take like the simplest path when it comes to consistently throwing out content. And I will say, like, I know it's like cliche, but the whole consistency part is the most important part of the equation. Like the more consistent you are with throwing stuff out there into the Instagram world or just social media world in general, the more people who are going to flock to your page and just be more interested in what you have to share. People aren't going to want to just follow a page if they're only posting like once every couple of months. I mean, possibly they will. I mean, quality does matter to an extent, but I will also say, like, if you get to the point where you're constantly posting, your brand's going to be constantly out there in the social media world. So people are always going to be seeing your posts. So like that's kind of been like my, I guess, advantage, or like my strategic advantage, where I've just always wanted to put at least 5 posts out on Instagram every single day. Now, when it comes to trying to manage like the content creation process, a lot of what I use is just Twitter. So like I'll be constantly throwing out tweets, and then whatever tweets that I think do decent, I'll use Canva to kind of crop them and make them look nice for Instagram, and then post them up onto Instagram. So I try to use like simple methods to like mass produce content. For example, like with this podcast, I will probably chop it up into pieces and then share it on to my Instagram as well. Like after you guys get it all posted. So like, it's just trying to be strategic with like how you're producing content, and then make it into smaller pieces to like kind of hit on that consistent aspect of what you're doing. Another part is just partnering with people, like building out brand partnerships where you guys, I mean, we've done this before where we've shared each other's posts. So like doing stuff like that. I mean, it's nice because you're sharing content from other pages that share your values. And then you're also, getting to meet people in the industry and build kind of connections. So it's like that. You're kind of hitting on those two corners. So just trying to, like, I guess at a high level, just be smart with mass producing content and making it, and trying to go like the simplest way. Like I try not to overcomplicate things. Like I'm just, one of the things I really focus on is just constantly throwing out tweets. And like, I'll say like 90% of them probably suck, but the 10% that actually do pretty well, I'll throw them on my Instagram. And then those will be the ones that actually kind of get a little bit more momentum than just the ones I'm just throwing out all the time.
It makes sense. I think the consistency thing is the most the most important thing that you said, because if your audience knows what to expect from you, then they'll know why you're posting, when you're posting, and then they'll be more likely to tune into it. So we do one podcast episode a week. Now that's rookie numbers to some of our people that we're talking to. Like, we have, for example, Brian Lubin, who's one of our good friends. He's full time, but he does I think 5 episodes a week. Now it's a little bit different. We don't have the time to do that, but he's growing it really, really fast. And then we do probably 8 Instagram posts a week, maybe 9 Instagram posts a week. Same thing on TikTok and then YouTube. Follow us on YouTube. We just started building that up, or subscribe to us on YouTube. But the consistency thing is what we've seen that has driven more organic growth over time. Now you've skyrocketed, so you've doing something that clearly we're not. But I think that the more your audience knows what to expect from you, the better.
Yeah, I wanna talk to the funnel system that you've created too, and I think people get to a certain point, and we're at a certain point where we have all this content coming out, right? Thousands of posts, truly. At what point did you say, hey, listen, I need to start building an email list because eventually I want to put a course together? And give us the schematics of creating that, how you did it. Because, and I'm not saying you're trying to monetize and suck money away from people, but hey, if you want to do this full time, you have to be able to fund your life, right? And to be able to. Exactly. So walk us through that, because I think that really gives the people behind the curtain that everybody wants to ask, but they don't have the opportunity to. So if you could give us some details on that.
Definitely. So I want to touch on real quick, just the algorithms in general, which is what kind of stops a lot of people from mass producing content because they feel like they're going to get penalized by the algorithm or whatever. Or, people get very, they build these weird beliefs around the algorithms. And to me, my whole philosophy is I'm just constantly posting because I'm going to let the algorithm decide what to show people. I'm not going to try to determine when to post or how often to post. I'm just going to be throwing stuff out there constantly. If the algorithm wants to show it, so be it. If not, then whatever. The algorithm gets to decide. And I mean, if you study the social media platforms, it's very consumer centric. So it's going to show your content more to people who engage with your content, and then less to people who aren't engaging with it is less. So you don't have to determine I think one common belief that a lot of creators get is they feel like they're going to spam their audience with too much content. And that's not something you have to worry about because the algorithm is going to determine that for them, not you. So you should be putting out as much content as you can because the people who love your content are going to want more of it. It's they will want one piece of content every 2 hours, if you could potentially do it. Now, fulfilling that is a whole other story because it's pretty difficult it's literally a full-time job, but there's definitely a correlation between the number of pieces of content you put out there and the more organic reach you get and just growth in general that you get. So that's that's one thing I would challenge newer creators is to, try not to let that belief of being in control of the algorithm stop you from producing content because the algorithms are going to do what they're going to do and you can't really control them.
That's such a great point, Josh. The algorithm is the most frustrating thing in the world. I think we probably should just stop worrying about it. It's funny because we'll go through a couple weeks where we're getting unreal engagement, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1,000 likes on posts. And then this week, for example, we don't think the content is much different. We're getting 50 to 100 likes. It's not about the likes. It's about how many people we can touch so that they can share it, so that we can bring value to them. I don't want people to confuse that with we're just trying to stack up likes. It's no, if we can have all these shares and people talking and communicating and saying, oh, well, these guys, Corey and Ryan, they're bringing value to my life. I want to tune into their podcast. What else do they have to offer? Is there anything deeper? Do they have coaching courses? All of that, again, to provide more value, not just to get more followers. What's the point of more followers if you're not able to either A, monetize it in a good way, doing good, and then also helping people along the way? So but it is frustrating. The algorithm is wild.
I think Josh, I just looked at your page too midway through again, and we are very cognizant of color matching every day. It's okay, orange is day, gray this day. Becomes a pain in the ass though, because it's okay, oh, we put out a gray, we got to switch it to this. Personally, I like that you just let it fly, dude. And you're just it could be black, it could be white.
Think that. Knowing you, I'm surprised.
We could get a way more content if we didn't think about it and have to plan it. We could just be okay, this looks great. Oh, this Josh put this on his page. It already hit. Let's put it on our page. Tag Josh. Say, dude, great post. Love it. Here's some insights. Great. Flood it in the market. I truly, it pisses me off that we do the color thing because I don't think it matters.
To me, okay, I'll say I don't think it does, but I was the same way when I first started, where I tried to make it look all nice and color oriented. But what I realized is only like a very small portion of your audience is ever going on your profile and like seeing like your total profile view. Most people when they're seeing your content are only seeing it in their feed. So like they don't really care if it's color coordinated or not. Now, what people might say is like, well, what if people who go to your profile and they might want to follow you, like they might want it to be like more organized, or they might be turned off if it's not like color oriented or whatever. I haven't really seen any I haven't seen that being the case. Like, I think people are going to follow your page if they like your content, and they don't. I mean, there might be some people who care about. I mean, there's always going to be like a fraction amount of people who actually care about that stuff, but I would say it's not as big of a deal as you might think it is. At least that's what I've noticed. Like, that's kind of my hypothesis, which is why I haven't really stressed about that part too much. Like, I think the most important part is just putting out content into the world that you enjoy talking about, like you enjoy it. And then that it's also going to be valuable to the person who's scrolling on their feed and then sees it. You know, like that's the mindset that I'm in when I'm throwing out content. And again, yeah, the algorithm. I mean, we will never know. Like, the algorithm's constantly changing, so like it's a losing battle trying to like time the best strategy or whatever with the algorithm. If you're putting out good content that other people are going to like, the algorithm's eventually going to show it. And if it doesn't, then that's kind of on the
good content.
Exactly. Usually that's the case. And don't get me wrong, like there are times where, you know, you get like, I've been shadow banned in the past for like 6 months. Like they've killed my reach like 80%. And like, I'll test it by putting out like similar content that would have done really well. And you could just tell that it's actually shadow banned. It's like, there are like weird things in the algorithm that can prevent you from like, you know, doing well, but a lot of it's just out of our control. Like, there's only so much we can do as creators. Like, my whole, like, the thing I'm going in on is just putting out content that is going to be helpful to people who potentially see it, and just doing that as scale. Like, that's the only thing I can control. I can't control what the algorithm does. I can't control when Instagram decides to change it. I mean, I can adapt to like different styles. Like, if reels start to perform well, like I'm going to try to adapt to that to an extent. But at a high level, I'm just going to, like, my main goal is just to put out as much content out there that another human being is going to find valuable that would potentially follow my page. Like, that's kind of my core concept when it comes to social media.
I really like that, and I we needed to hear that, because dude, you're almost at 1 million followers. Like, you've done this, you know, consistently for the last couple of years. But what I looking at your page, some of your posts have your branding on it, some of it doesn't. It's just a reshared tweet, but it's engaging content that you liked, and you put your thoughts right in the caption. And sometimes it's long, sometimes it's not. Then sometimes there's hashtags, sometimes there's not. So if you're posting 5 times a day, dude, like, something is gonna hit someone, and then the algorithm, it's gonna hit more than one person, clearly, right? It's gonna hit a bucket of people. They're like, oh, dude, this is it. So for us, we've tried to follow trends. We see the tweets. Okay, everybody likes the tweets for a certain amount of time, so we reshare tweets, post tweets. Then you're like, okay, they're favoring reels, so we put the tweets in a reel format, and you put music behind them. Is it 3 seconds? Is it 8 seconds? There's so many things, and I know you think about this stuff too, bro.
Of course.
We've all been through this as creators, and it's just kind of nice to hear at the beginning, like back to the basics. It's like, hey, dude, just if it's exciting content that you'd want to consume, your audience will likely want to consume it too. So just post it and let it fly. Like, you don't need to worry about it. We want to get our faces out there, right, in our podcast. Dude, for whatever reason, people hate the reels that are like our podcast reels when we have guests. It's the weirdest thing. They'll listen to the podcast, but they don't, maybe it's the attention span. It's like, I want to read something that's insightful that I can share, but like maybe a 45-second clip of a tiny snippet of the episode, for whatever reason, Instagram's not pushing it out. So we've been trying to find the balance and strike the balance there of trying to figure out what to do to how to promote the pod, but it's an interesting game.
One of the reasons why this whole conversation is important, because we don't often talk about like content creation on our podcast. It's more so like the investing and the entrepreneurship, but it all plays a factor. And the reason why I say that is, like, I find our content makes Ryan and I so much more marketable to other people in any industry, right? And just as an example, like, if you're at your day job and you're Josh and you're doing really well and things are great, but you never really know when a recession's coming, you don't know if you're going to get laid off. If you have something built, a brand that you have built that you can lean on, that you can dive into, that people can say, oh, look what this guy's done on the side, or look what this gal's done on the side, or look at what they've created for themselves. And that's why we love the content creation side, is because Brennan at Budget Dog mentioned this on our podcast. He said attention is the new currency, and it stuck with us. I've said it on like probably 10 podcast episodes, because if you're able to create authentically from within and portray that out there and other people like it, that means you have more value to the marketplace than you even realized just doing whatever you've already been doing in your job. So why not put more and more out there, see where it goes, and then those opportunities virtually can lead you to insane places. Like Ryan and I didn't think we were going to be owning a hospitality business like that. How would that have happened? It would literally not have happened if we didn't start the podcast. So for people listening, the point of it all is to say, if you have a brand, if you have something to give, if you can talk to people about a specific niche, now be specific. If you can do that, it'll lead you to places that you never even imagined that you could go. At least that's what happens for us.
Yeah, well, even just to add on to that, the coolest part about creating on social media is finding like-minded people, especially when it comes to like investing and just like kind of what I talk about, or even you guys talk about. It's hard to find people who like to talk about this stuff in just the regular world. So, one of the coolest part is like, even if you don't necessarily have to build a monstrous page, but even if you just have an interest in investing, like you can build a profile, for yourself, like your individual profile, and just start talking about what you want to talk about. And you might get 100, 200 followers of people that are actually interested in what you have to say. It might not be a lot of followers, but those people, I mean, they're real humans, right? So like you can build these connections with people around the world, around the United States, or wherever you're at. And you're going to be able to build connections around people who like the topics that you like to talk about, which is, so it's never been easier to like build a network. And the way that I like to think of it is it's kind of like your own like digital resume, right? Like that's a good kind of way to kind of frame it, I guess, in your mind. A lot of people get, I would say the hardest part is just actually posting content, like just putting shit out there, because don't get me wrong. I mean, it's easy to like overthink and like be a perfectionist when it comes to like how you want your content to look. But I mean, you gotta kind of have some humility and just put out stuff, because like it's not always going to be perfect. Like the stuff I put out there is not always perfect. I'm always making mistakes. But the fact that I'm just willing to like just keep posting is like, that's half the battle, It's like, I mean, there are creators out, don't get me wrong, there are creators that do a hell of a lot better job than I do with like making their page look a lot nicer, making their brand look a lot more presentable. But for me, like, I just think it's like, I would much rather just throw out as much content I can into the social media world. And that alone is going to attract the people who want to see my content, And then the people, it's going to repel the people that don't want to see it. So like, it's kind of like a natural cleansing mechanism. So to me, like, I think the main equation, or like the key part of the equation, is just constantly posting stuff that you enjoy talking about. And like you said, that's going to lead to opportunities of meeting people who like your content or like to talk about the stuff you like to talk about, which is an invaluable concept or part of building on social media.
Sure. I like how you said digital resume. It actually took the words out of my mouth. I was going to go there next. It truly is. Like, think about even when you're out and about and you're, I don't know, talk about what you do. People always ask, you meet someone at the bar or whatever, you're out with family and like, oh, what do you do? And you're like, well, you can name your W-2 job. You can name that you are an influencer, you're an entrepreneur, whatever you want, But then once you say social media, they're like, oh, cool, let me see your page. And then you pop up your page, dude, and you have 815,000 people like, oh, you have a community. This is like, you've built something, and they know how much, if you have even a personal page, you know how much time it takes to grow 200, 300, 400, 500 followers, whatever. People are try to do that all the time. They want more friends, but to build the community and that large is something of, not many people can do it, right? And they won't put the consistent work into it. So the people that are seeing that, they're like, whoa, this guy's legitimate. He knows what it takes to build a business, build a brand, market himself. And then that brings you value to the market. And as Corey said, it's like so many opportunities have come our way just from that, from people seeing our page. They, not just the page, then they go to the link tree and they see everything like, oh, you guys have real estate, you have this, there's pictures of it. But it's the way you market yourself and you sell yourself. It is a digital resume, and it's opened so many doors. Can you talk to some of the doors that it's opened for you, and then how it's like kind of allowed you to pull yourself out of the W-2 world and how you've been able to do it full time?
Yeah. So, I mean, well, first off, I will say, I mean, I've built my page trying to help people learn the basics of personal finance. So constantly putting out content like that has attracted a lot of people who are interested in learning the basics, right? And I mean, I've been posting, I want to say my page just recently turned 5 years. So I've been on Instagram for 5 years with the Market Hustle. I didn't really start to aggressively post until like 3 years ago. So like I've been consistently posting every single day for 3 years. I'll say that. So with all that, constant posting, you start to build a pretty loyal fan base, no matter what type of page you're no matter what type of page you're building, like if you're posting for 3 years consistently, you're going to build some sort of audience.
Totally.
So,
Yep.
and the cool thing is like the people who I built relationships with from all over the United States and just all over the world, like they support me in whatever I do. So if I put out like a project or if I'm creating a different course or whatever it is, like they're the first ones to be there to support it. And it's kind of like having like a family throughout the world that loves to talk about this stuff. Like they're there to support me and to buy my products and stuff with whatever I put out there. So that alone has just been super encouraging. And I built a lot of good relationships out of that. But not only that, like also like one of my favorite parts is just, talking with different creators who are also in this space, like building their own brands, because there's a lot of magic that comes out of working together with other brands with other people who have a similar mindset of you or a similar mission and just building stuff together. So I've been working on doing that more, especially this year, just trying to network a little bit more with the creators in the actual space, especially right now. Cause like right now I would say we're kind of like in our own little mini recession in this space. It's not as sexy as it was in 2021 or even 2020. There's a lot of creators are kind of starting to drop out. So you can kind of see that happening. So like for me, like I want to like see the creators, like I'm keeping a close eye of the creators who are like still in this game. And I want to try to build something while we're in this bear market, while we're in this creator bear market. And that way, when we have things built, like the next bull market, whenever that inevitably comes, we'll be well prepared to have better systems in place and just have better resources that we can offer all of our audiences. So
It's
it's fun.
perfect segue, Josh, because I wanted to talk about the market as we transition and kind of wind down the show. It's funny that you say that because it's very easy to talk about investing and real estate and building businesses and entrepreneurship when the stock market's up 30% in a year and real estate's rising, 40% in a year. It's really easy to try to get people to buy in and be like, this is what you should do, right? That's never been our goal, to get people to quote unquote buy in. It's to share our experiences. We have had some crazy stuff happen with our rental portfolio that we're going to unveil in the next coming weeks. But I'm curious what your take is on the market now. What's going on? Like, what do you think's happening? What is your recommendation? I've been investing the same way now that I was in 2020, that I was in 2021, in terms of investing into index funds and ETFs. Same way, I haven't changed it a bit. I've lost a lot of money, but it's like I don't really care because I don't need it right now. The investing has shifted on the real estate side too, a little bit, just because we're trying to find the right deals. But I'm curious what your take is on it, what you're seeing out there. As you mentioned, a bunch of the content creators are some are dropping off.
Yeah. I mean, and what's really interesting is there are a lot of correlations from like to the investing world and just like the social media world. Like when it comes to the consistency part, playing the long-term game, and just constantly put stuff out there, like there's a lot of similarities. And what I'll say is that it's just, if you study market cycles, things make a lot more sense when we go through an inevitable bear market or market crash or recession. Now, the way I like to kind of, I guess, articulate it is it's a lot like seasons, right? Where we just went through a crazy summer. It was like a beautiful summer. Everybody was enjoying, everybody loved it. It was a great summer. And now we're going through a pretty cold winter. It's part of the seasons, like just the part of the cycle, the inevitable cycle that we've always gone through. It's like this crash is nothing new. Like, we've been through numerous amounts of bear markets. Granted, like they're always different. Like every market crash is going to be somewhat different. Like there's going to be some different cause. The problem's going to be different. And inevitably it's going to seem like it's the end of the world, like it always does. I mean, go back to
Josh, I want to touch on that because I swear to God, every time you turn something on, it's always like, this one is the one that it ends the world. No, this one. And I don't know if that's like fear-based intentionality. And I said this I think on another pod, like it's all of it is like, oh no, this is going to be the worst thing. Like batten down the hatches. It's like, dude, I'm not going to take that approach mentally anyway, because they keep coming. The recessions are going to be here. As long as there's no apocalyptic event, like, the world explodes, like recessions are going to come, recessions are going to go. It's going to be consistent. And you just I feel like you just stay the course. And I didn't mean to cut you off. I just want to throw that out there because I'm seeing it all over social.
You're right. And the reason why is because fear sells, right? Like all these people like that are these articles, these news medias, or just even social media pages that are pushing this fear, like fear grabs attention. Especially, and kind of going back to what you guys were talking about earlier, like attention is the currency. So when people are in that fear mindset, like a lot of creators or just people who are writing articles are going to throw out those fear articles because that's what people are eating up right now, right? So like the positivity and just like preaching the basic long-term mindset, dollar cost averaging isn't super sexy right now. Exactly. Nobody wants to hear it right now. And that's fine. But I'm still going to continue to do what I preach because historically that's been the best strategy to follow. And my response to people who say like, oh, well, this time's different or whatever, or the market's going to blow up and this is the last moment before everything just goes to shit. Well, even if that does happen, like you should still invest, because if the stock market blows up and goes to zero, we're going to have much, much, much bigger problems to worry about than money in general. You're going to be more worried about trying to find food, and currency and all that's going to be worthless anyways if the whole financial system blows up. So that being said, like if the apocalyptic scenario does play out, yeah, we're going to have much more to worry about. So you might as well invest. You might as well take advantage of these sales with your money and invest. And a big thing a lot of people are worried about right now, which I would say I am as well, is long-term inflation, right? Long-term inflation seems to be something that is very concerning to a lot of people. And I would say, if you think inflation is going to be worse over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, then you shouldn't be selling your assets for dollars right now. You should be buying these assets while they're on sale, because assets that are producing real value in the world are going to be something that adjusts for inflation a lot more than the currency that they're inflating, right? So I think a lot of people just have, it's easy to get kind of caught up into the short-term fear cycle that we're currently in. But I'm pretty optimistic about, we've gotten through numerous crises as a society, or even in the United States in general. We've gone through the Great Depression, we've gone through 2 world wars, and we've figured it out and we've come out the other side stronger. And I have no reason to believe that this current situation that we're facing is going to be any different. The story and how it kind of unfolds is going to be different. I don't doubt that there's going to be some short-term pain, but I think as long as you have, you have an emergency fund, you have your basic money management concepts in place, and you're able to take advantage of the panic selling and just like all the fear, like you're going to be able to position yourself into a lot better situation 5, 10, 15 years from now than if you just sit here and scream that the world's ending and not do anything about it.
Yeah, there's so many opportunities that come as a result of these recessions too, right? Just think about anytime something bad, the world goes to shit, there's some new thing that comes and just takes off. Like you talk about tech bubble, all that stuff. And then, cryptocurrency came, and it, obviously it's been up and down. There's just so many new things that who knows what's going to happen. Now they're talking about AI for everything, right? There's everything on social, right? So we've seen where I'm talking to like a mirrored version of us, right? Like we create the content, we see what's out there, what's popular, right? We're making conversations about the same things. But what I'll say is remaining consistent is key, but also don't forget you're going to have to take action at some point. So it's like making sure you siphon off a little bit of cash, so that way when the opportunity does arise and come up, you're not left behind. You just mentioned it. Like a lot of people swear the world's going to come to an end, and they just keep talking shit, but they don't make their lives better. They don't sharpen their skills. Like that's what you should be doing, is researching, studying. How can I personally get better and get more knowledge about the world in general, the economics, finance, all that. So that way, when things, as I get older, as I experience certain things, I know my risk tolerance. I know what I want to go into. I spread myself around so that I'm not just sucked into one silo. If that one silo falls off, then I'm done. So there's a lot of stuff out there, your content, our content, a lot of people in our community, right? That's what we're preaching every day. We're trying to help everybody out around us. I will say there's probably a lot of people that are like, dude, this is great. You guys talked about personal finance, you talked about real estate, but what do I invest in? So I know we talked pre-show. Give us one of your basic investing strategies, just so we can give a little bit of love to someone that's like, dude, just give me a ticker. I need some help. I love it. I hear the index fund things. What's your strategy on that? And maybe you can help a couple of people listening.
Everybody's looking for some magical formula when they ask this question. And, I hate
to Josh, how do I turn my $10,000 into $1 million, and I just need it by, I would say sometime in April would be fine. Like, give me that would be good. Yeah,
we got to ask ChatGPT. Got to get ChatGPT on here.
I know.
It's true.
But no, I think, just going based off of everything I've studied, you can't beat investing in S&P 500 index fund, like that alone. And let me add some context behind that, because I know it's a boring answer and it's not a sexy answer. But the reason why is because when you're investing in an S&P 500 index fund, you're buying the top 500 companies in the world, essentially, right? And these aren't only American companies. These are companies that operate globally. It's like a big pushback that a lot of people get when I say I invest in just an S&P 500 index fund is, well, what about international exposure? And my response to that is like, these companies are operating internationally, right? They're in almost every well-developed market. I mean, unless they're banned by a country like China, they're in most of these countries. So like you have, in a sense, international exposure just investing in S&P 500 fund. So these companies are heightened companies. So you're literally buying the best of the best by simply investing in the top 500 S&P 500 index funds. So that's my response to anybody who simply asks, just tell me what to buy. What should I invest in? I think 99.9% of people are going to do much better just investing in a simple index fund that mirrors the S&P 500 index and calling it a day than trying to build some complicated investing strategy that will likely outperform the S&P 500 over the next 5-10 years.
I totally agree. I think, in my opinion, real estate is a better investment long term, and I think it can outperform, but it is work, bro. Like, it is work. You don't just like show up and press a button and like make money, right? So that's why for your strategy, it's like, if you really do want to make money and build wealth, you can do it by earning as high income as possible, living below your means, and investing that 20, 30, 40%. If you can do that, that's amazing. You will become wealthy. Again, barring some unearthly apocalyptic event, you will become wealthy because the wealthiest people in the world are controlling those investments, right? They're not going to stop it for themselves. So they're not going to stop it for the dude that has a $2 million net worth that's just trying to live his life. So I would say I've become more, Ryan and I try to get more passive on certain things. We're in syndications, but I love real estate for the person that wants to go get it and go do it and make a difference and build and kind of like try to mold something that's right in front of them. But if you want to be really passive, there's nothing more hands-off than investing in index funds. So I'll just leave it.
The long-term buy and hold. If you're if you said it perfectly, it's just like raise your income and plug it in there, and then you're good to go. If you want to do it faster and more creative, then you do real estate, or maybe you do a blend. That's what I would recommend.
We have a blend. That's what we do.
Yep. And it's, I don't know. For me, I like being hands-on. I think you should get automatic if you're going to do the index fund situation. And also, I mean, that's also, you can pick individual stocks and all that. But for me, the hard part was, okay, I got this paycheck. How am I going to spread it out? And so it took research, educating myself, and talking to a lot of people, but then having the accountability to actually do it every time. If it wasn't automatic, it wouldn't get done. So for those beginners out there, it's, hey, figure out what you can do away with and what you can put into the market every single paycheck and set it up automatic. So as soon as that hits your bank account, bang, it's gone. It's directly deposited, and then it goes into the fund right away. That's what I highly recommend, because I realized there's a book I read way back. It's called like The Automatic Millionaire by David Bach. And it was to these exact, and also Ramit Sethi has, I Will Teach You to Be Rich. I'm sure you've read that. If you haven't, it's phenomenal. But it tells you, hey, here's the blueprint. Here's a 6-week program, and set your stuff out automatic, and you'll be good to go. Go focus on bettering yourself and making yourself more marketable and making more cash. The machine will work for you once you start funneling it in and raising your percentages. And it's basic. It seems basic. It's much harder to do and execute, right? But that is
the hardest part to do is the patience. That's the hardest part. Like if you're watching your account grow and then you want to take it and go do something with it, like the hardest part is right now, what we're talking about, 2023, the patience to go through this and dollar cost average and keep it in. And it's like, as long as you tell yourself, that's why I also feel like the creators on Instagram are so important for people, because if you're feeding yourself that information, then it's a constant reminder that I'm on the right track. These people are still doing it. I should still be doing this. I'm not just going to go, try to buy the new $50,000 car just because, and you can do that if it makes you happy. Please do it. But I'm saying, if you really want to build long-term wealth, it really takes a lot of patience. So I'm sure we're preaching to the choir there. Second to last segment, Josh, the core four. We're going to get to know you a little bit more personally here. First question. What is your favorite investing or business book? Now, this can be anything that's kind of helped you along your journey, but pick one if you could, or two, whatever.
I'm sure he's got an arsenal.
I'll say, I'll probably say The Psychology of Money. Just because I feel like that book it's great for beginners, and it really kind of solidifies the behavior aspect to just personal finance and investing in general, which kind of summarizing what we were just talking about, a lot of it is a game of managing your own behavior and your emotions, right? And that's the hardest part. It's simple, like the investing concepts and just personal finance is super simple. The hardest part is managing your emotions and your own behavior. So the Psychology of Money, I feel like that book really kind of opens that up for people who are still kind of new to this world and want to better just be more aware of what might be preventing them from jumping to the next level, because the concepts are simple. Like everybody's looking for some magical formula, and it's not, there's no magical formula. Like it's pretty simple. You know, spend less than you make, invest the difference in something like an index funds, and be patient. You know, it's a simple formula, but it's hard to implement because it requires mastering your own emotions and your own behavior. And I feel like Psychology of Money definitely kind of hits on all of that.
That's a great recommendation. I will say it is mastering your emotions, because you go through this journey, right? And even when you have things set up automatically, more things come across your plate as you get better in the game, or the more research you do, and you're like, oh, that sounds great. Maybe I should move my funds into that, or it's shiny objects.
You probably
right?
shouldn't.
And so that's what I'm from experience. Once you have it set up the right way, just keep that lane going, then take new money and put it into the other lane. That's what I'd say. Because once you disrupt your system, you're back at square one again, and you're taking compounding off the table, and you're just jumping in on the middle of a different market than where you started. So needless to say, I'd keep it automatic. Think new money for each lane if you can. But thanks for that, Josh. Second question of the core four is, hopefully I'm not mixing these up, but if Corey and I gave you a check today for $50,000,
100.
You want Josh for 100?
Yeah.
We're going to hundo? Okay. 100 grand today. Yeah, you big me up. 100 grand, 6 figures, tax free. You can do anything you want with it. You can spend it on yourself. You can invest it. Think of it as a pie chart. You can take your time with this, but what would you do with it and why?
Buying a boat.
Nice.
It's like, that is not what I would
See, that's kind of a good answer. But
man.
You know, if I had $100,000, you know, again, probably going back to my simpler answer, like a lot of it would go to the index funds, just throwing it into vote. But one thing I kind of want to touch on as well, like I'm a big component of like being aggressive with trying to increase your income, and then being patient with like the investment side of the equation, which is what I like to do with like the stock market and index investing, where I just keep things simple. I want investing to be purely passive as it can be. So, you know, that being said, I would probably put 25, 30% into my own business, like trying to fund more marketing for the market hustle to like build more exposures. Like I would be more aggressive on my active income part of the equation, but then I would put a portion of that, maybe 75%, just straight into like the index fund, into BO, S&P 500 index fund. So I think that'd be my answer if I had to quickly give you a response.
that's funny. I don't think we've ever answered this. Here's what I would do. I think right now.
You just figured it out? Okay.
Well, I mean, in March of 2023, this is what I would do. It might change next week. I think I would take 60 to 70K and put it into a real estate deal. I would take, let's give it an actual number. I'll put $65,000 into a real estate deal. I would take $15,000 and spend it on a coach for us, or a business coach. So that's 80, right? And then I would probably take $10,000 and pay off some debt, and then I would probably take $5,000 and put it into the market, and then I would probably just play with 5, like vacation or
your debt. Shit. Your 10 of debt, is that your car?
Pay off my car fully, which is almost paid off, or put it towards our HELOC, something like that. Or debt, some sort of debt like that.
Nice.
So yeah, I just thought of that, but there you go.
We literally talked about this pre-call, so I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, I hope you're gonna tell the truth.
Yeah, I mean, I it might change a little bit, but that's just,
Of course, yeah.
I definitely want to keep investing in real estate specifically for us. But okay, question 3. What's been your biggest mistake, Josh, that you made in your investing journey, and how have you learned from it?
So I would say, I mean, when I first got started investing back when I was 18, I wasn't like, I learned a lot from that first year investing in the stock market. Like I was probably your stereotypical new investor where I tried to jump into penny stocks. I lost, it was only a couple $100, but I mean, at the time that was quite a bit of money to me. And, I kind of got turned off by the stock market, just as the stereotypical new investors. Like I feel the pain of newer investors, like as I see them jump into the stock market, and I try to like share my experiences with them when I'm talking with them one-on-one. But I guess just, falling for the the typical things newer investors fall for, which is trying to find the next winning stock, and playing with the penny stocks, and kind of falling for those pump and dumps. That's something that I made a mistake of when I first started. But ultimately, like, I mean, you learn, right? I mean, you're gonna learn. You're either gonna learn from reading and like trying to learn from other people's experiences, or you're gonna learn from your own experiences. And sometimes, I mean, the best way to learn is from your own experiences. Like, I feel like that's the most powerful way to learn, because somebody can tell you like just the basics of investing, or the best time to buy in the stock markets when things are choppy and in red or whatever, and the market's down. But until you actually experience it for yourself, like, you're not truly going to know. So I would say, those experiences definitely shaped me up as an investor for like who I am today. But yeah, I mean, the beginning, no matter where you're at, when you're first starting, like getting started investing, you're going to make some sort of mistake. It's inevitable.
Yeah, Josh, it's also easy to say that, like, oh, dollar cost average, keep investing. And then when you watch a 4% down day, you're like, oh man, I definitely don't want to keep investing. But you should, like, you really should. And I mean, I'm a testament. You are, like, we're still investing. You're still monthly investing, right? You haven't taken your foot off the gas. And like, dude, 2022 was bad.
Dude, here's where I'm at. I don't look at it. I know, because I know you hear all the shit, like you see it everywhere. I'm just keeping my systems the way they're running, and I'm focusing on how can I make as much new money as I possibly can, pumping that into real estate. And maybe I'll raise my percentages across my investments on the back end. But that's what I think people need to realize. Like, the fastest way to become wealthy is to increase your income. Obviously, it's like to build the systems on the back end, but if you can get yourself up to that level where you're making a couple $100,000, like, you're going to expedite everything. And that's to all the people that say, hey, I don't want to wait till 65 to become a millionaire. It's like, dude, well, get $100,000 before $100,000 before age 35. And we've all seen the tweet, and then compound interest will take care of the rest. Great. I'm focused
People
on
that say that are people that aren't touching $1 million, because the point is like,
it won't be worth $1 million in
would
you're
you,
65.
would you not want to have, would you not want to? You wouldn't want to have an extra $1 million? Like, okay, let's like,
or just a bare minimum. Just like, dude, just do the minimum there, and then you could do whatever you want with the new money coming in, and maybe you'll be a multimillionaire. Like, everyone wants to troll, like, and once in a while, like, check the numbers. It's like, it's social media, right? And it's not only education, right? We're out there for a certain reason, but other people, they're not. So I think it's fun to talk about. But so question 4 is actually my favorite part of the show. Josh, my question for you is, what do you want your legacy to be? So what gets you out of bed every morning to do what you do? What's your overarching why behind the not only the market hustle, but behind Josh?
That's a good question. I really enjoy being in this space. I know it's gonna be like a cliche answer, but like I really enjoy like making content and just helping people. Like, again, kind of what we started off earlier, like, oddly enough, I like to talk about personal finance and this type of stuff. Like, not a lot of people do, but for me, it's an exciting concept, because when you see somebody on the other end, like, actually take what you tell them, like they actually implement it in their own life, and it starts to change the direction of their future. Like, there's nothing more rewarding work-wise than helping people change the direction of their financial future. Like, it's something special. So I would love, like, I think as long as things go according to plan, like, I want to see how far I could take the Market Hustle, my brand here on social media, how far I can grow it, and how much of an impact it can have across the board. So I mean, I plan to be like, I like to play long-term games when it comes to investing, but also when it comes to my own business. Like, I want to be in this for a long period of time, if not forever. I mean, obviously we don't know what the future is going to hold, but I could see myself being in this space and trying to make an impact as much as I can by doing this type of work. I mean, it's been the most rewarding work for me, just helping individually people, or just even getting those messages. I mean, I'm sure you guys could attest to this. Like, when you get those DMs of people who've made changes in their life, and they finally have a vision to start making progress, for their future. It's something it's very special, like, doing this type of work and seeing and getting those responses and those comments from people in my community.
Definitely, man. Great answer. Last question, Josh. I don't know how old you are, but I know you're not 18. So let's say you could go back to talk to your 18-year-old self, look him in the mirror. What advice would you give 18-year-old Josh?
Knowing what you know about the world now.
Yeah. So yeah.
Easily bet on myself. Like, I was kind of hesitant. Like, I probably would have saved, like, I went to college, I went to the whole university route, and I was going to go like kind of like the safer route, get a job, like an office job. And, that was kind of the original path I was on. But I feel like that kind of set me back by going the college route. Like, don't get me wrong, I learned a lot going to business school and stuff, but what I'm doing now, like I'm doing a lot more entrepreneurial stuff. I feel like I would have been a lot more ahead if I would have just went straight into like being an entrepreneur compared to waiting 4 years before actually taking the dive. So I would definitely tell myself to just bet fully on myself right away and without any hesitation, and keep the noise out, like society's noise and what everybody else is doing. Like just ignore that and focus on your own path.
Awesome. Great answer. Josh, it's been a pleasure to get to know you, the face behind the Market Hustle. If people want to learn more about you, your story, network, maybe get involved in some of the products that you offer, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Yeah, I mean, Instagram is the best way. Hit me up in the DMs, the Market Hustle. I try to respond to every single message. So if you have any questions about this podcast or just personal finance questions in general, hit me up and I'd be more than happy to help.
Josh, you're the man. Thank you so much. I will say, for those not subscribed or that aren't familiar with it, I'm subscribed to your newsletter. It's awesome. So bite-sized information, but it's the way you took there was one that you did specifically about ETFs and you did a nice walkthrough, and then there's usually like a YouTube clip associated with those. So you do a great job on the back end. So for those interested, at the Market Hustle on Instagram, you can find everything in his link tree. And Josh, thanks for dropping some bombs on us today. It was a pleasure getting to know you, and I think you provide a lot of value for our listeners. So thanks.
Thanks, guys. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks for tuning in this week to the Weekly Juice Podcast. If you liked what you heard, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, and share with friends. The more ratings we get, the more ears we'll get on our show, and in turn, we'll be able to provide you with more high-quality guests. You can also find us on Instagram at Weekly Juice Pod, where we post daily tips and tricks and document our own journey towards financial freedom. Make sure to tune in every Wednesday to get your weekly juice.